I had my children on the floor. I was on my favourite blanket that my grandmother gave me on the floor like a cat.
And I realised in that moment the potential of what our bodies can really do as women.
Like I could feel his head, I could do my own internal, like, yeah, his head, I could feel it.
I was in tears, I was just in tears and overwhelmed with gratitude.
Hi, and welcome to the Natural Birth Podcast, the podcast that is bringing embodied birth wisdom from women from all over the world, sharing their natural birth stories. Don't forget to subscribe and download so that you can always have access to these empowering and positive natural birth stories. Hi, my name is Anna, and I am the Natural Birth Podcast host. I'm a former midwife who left the system, and I'm now the proud founder of Sacred Birth International, a woman-owned company with a mission to revolutionize the birth world and bring focus to the sacred and the natural intelligence of the birth process. We do this by providing world-class education, courses, programs, and coaching to equip women with the knowledge and the tools to have conscious pregnancies, empowering and positive birth experiences, and the most nourishing start possible for themselves and their babies postpartum. We also educate and mentor aspiring birth workers into sacred space holders and physiological birth advocates in the Sacred Birth Worker Mentorship, the Beyond a Doula training. If you'd like to work with me or take any of our courses, programs, or the mentorship, then head on over to sacredbirthinternational.com to find out more. Hi, Karina, and welcome to the Natural Birth Podcast. How are you?
I'm well, thank you so much for having me. So looking forward to this conversation.
I'm so looking forward to hearing it. For anyone who's watching this on YouTube, you might notice there's a different background. I'm currently visiting my parents. Beans is lying in the couch beside me. So if you're curious about seeing my little doggy, then he's here too. You can see him on YouTube, on the YouTube video. Today, we're going to dive on into your two birth stories, but we're going to focus on your latest. That was almost exactly 1 year ago, correct? On winter solstice time?
2 years ago. So little Lila Bloom was born, the 23rd of the 2nd, 2023 at 12:01 a.m. So she just made it. So yeah, she had her second birthday yesterday, which was, super special. So it feels full circle having this conversation with you.
I love that. And, whatever you believe around the postpartum, I mean, I go into depth about this in the Sacred Birth Worker Mentorship. Like, what is the postpartum? Medically, it's like, okay, the 6 weeks postpartum, right? It's like the definition of postpartum. And then some people say, well, no, it's like the first year. And then some people say, oh, maybe the first 6 months, or, oh, maybe 2 years, or maybe 7, or maybe all of life. Fill in the blank. What do you define the postpartum as? But really, like, your brain changes as a woman from the first moment of conception to pregnancy and 2 years postpartum. So you're really just at that cusp of kind of, coming out of that rewiring that happens with your brain, of course, your personality, your values, everything. I mean, I just find that really curious too, that you're sitting here sharing this story on that day as you coming out of that 2-year postpartum bubble with your second. That's really cute.
100%. Yeah, it's all divinely timed. Yeah, it's so perfect. And I do feel like a different person 2 years into being a mum of 2. Yeah.
Yeah, I can imagine. All right. Well, I would love to hear, your first birth and what you've learned from that and how that informed you for your second, that we're going to dive deeper into today.
Absolutely. So my first birth of my beautiful son was a surprise baby, totally meant to be here. And, when you reflect upon your surprise babies, you totally understand why they chose that opportunity to come in. But it was quite a challenging pregnancy, not anything physical, but more mentally and emotional. And I had not been with my partner for very long as well. So we committed to each other and then bam, pregnant. And I consider myself to be quite in tuned and quite connected, and really I like to explore the internal and the ethereal and all that sort of things. And I just had zero connection during pregnancy, and that was hard. And then when it came to birth, I knew I wanted a home birth. My sister had two home births that I was witnessed for. So that was, it was just it wasn't a foreign concept to me. So, but I was part of the system. I was part of a midwifery group, which was, so fantastic. Still part of the system, which is fine. And so there's the red tapes and some hoops and some boxes you needed to tick. And during my labor, I just wasn't able to go inwards for a multitude of reasons that I explored, later on. I wasn't working with the sensations of my body. I didn't understand them. I started judging them. I started labeling them. And when you put that attachment onto it, it grows, right? And then you get out of your zone, you lose faith in yourself, you lose trust in yourself. And yeah, I ended up with a hospital transfer. It wasn't an emergency. I was severely dehydrated, and one of the technicalities was that I couldn't have an IV drip. I had to go to the hospital. So knew that was going to happen, and I was so grateful from listening to your podcast and all the other women. I knew how the system worked. I knew how the time frames. I knew what I was going to be asked, and I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to be one step ahead, and everything's going to be a conscious choice on my behalf. So when they asked about my waters, when I knew that the time was leading for the induction and the epidural and all that kind of stuff, I was one step ahead of them. So it really was all my choice, but I did choose all of those interventions. And I had a beautiful baby boy, and it was blissful, and we had those moments, but postpartum was hard from probably the emotional calm down and detoxing with the drugs and all those sorts of things. But during that experience, I just learnt what I wanted for my second when I was ready for my second. And I was just so strong and so determined. And when me and my husband were exploring the idea of having a second child, I'm like, well, we have to have a private midwife until we have the finances, because, finances come into play. Until we have the finances, it's just not on the table. And interesting enough, he got made redundant and he got this big payout. And he's like, I guess we can have our second baby now. And the spirit of Lila, who this story is about, she was floating around, and I'm like, wonder if she intervened with this. So yeah, I already knew the private midwife that I was going to go for. I had sort of interviewed her, I guess you would say, and we were super aligned, and it just fitted. And with the pregnancy and the birth of Lila, it was so connected. She was talking to me, not all the time, but she told me her name was Lila Bloom. She told me she wanted a lotus birth. All these sorts of things. And I wasn't hung up on any of it. And I was like, okay, well, I'm going to do what I said what I was going to do, and I'm going to connect in and listen to my body and listen to my baby, and then that in turn is going to be the best decision and choices for my family. And yeah, it was beautiful and very, very connected. Your normal pregnancy symptoms, but nothing crazy. And I really made it a focus. With your first baby, you actually have so much time to connect because you're not running after a toddler. And then during this pregnancy with my daughter, I was running after a toddler, but I made the time to connect. When he was napping, I connected in. And when he went to bed, all those sorts of things, like life carried on, but I found the time, because there is the time to go inwards. What does this sensation feel like to me? What does her energy feel like to me? What does my energy feel like to me? What does the noise
Mm.
feel like? Right?
Yeah.
So when there's so much noise about pregnancy and birth and mothering,
Oh,
and it's so easy to become influenced without even realizing.
yeah.
And so just learning the difference between, like, oh, I've been kind of infiltrated here. Is this my truth? And just learning the difference. And it's all in the body,
Yeah.
not so much in the mind.
I just
So that was
love that.
huge.
Yeah. I just love that piece of wisdom of that you just shared about your first and how you recognized in hindsight, how because the biggest reason for transfer, like absolute majority, is maternal fatigue and maternal choice, right?
Yeah.
Not emergencies at all from home birth.
Yeah.
It's really like, I don't know if it's like 90 something plus, percent is that. And and so, how you recognized you weren't connecting in the first pregnancy and maybe not doing that inner work or like really, because it is like birth is really mental. It's a mental game, right? Your body is
Absolutely.
designed to do this.
Mm,
Most women's bodies and babies will be able to birth fine. It's
mm.
the mind that is so deeply powerful. And that is
So
where you need to
powerful.
do, right? That's where you need to do your work. And it helps to understand, of course, labor and birth and what's normal and what you can expect. But then it's just, addressing the fears and doing the inner work and the connection to your baby. I think that's actually really key. Like you're doing this together. You are going to birth together. I love that. I
Yeah,
love that piece of wisdom.
absolutely. And your baby, like, why did they choose you to be your mum? They know what's going on. They know what's going to make um coming earthside, just right for them. And even just with Lila saying that she wanted a lotus birth, I was like, okay, I guess I'll research that. And, don't research that. It's just so conflicting. Yeah, yeah, it's very interesting. But I'll get to that. But yeah, just with that, I'm like, okay, well, I've followed my intuition, my inner knowing so far. I know the difference between not following it. So let's just explore this, and see where it takes us. But our babies, they have the wisdom and they want to share it with you. And it's just a bit of practice of going inwards and then feeling the subtle cues and the subtle energies until it becomes more clear to you. But it's a practice. You need to give it time. Yeah. And unless you have a baby that's just like, which happens.
That is so funny. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, if I could give you any advice, you who are listening, like take the time in pregnancy. And you're so right that the first pregnancy obviously is the easiest to have that time. But for a lot of women, they only find that out after somehow, just like
Mm,
you. Like, so I love this piece of wisdom. Like, if you're pregnant right now, if it's your first or second or fifth or whatever, like the importance of taking the time to connect with your baby, but also with yourself. Just like you said, like noticing what am I thinking? What's going on in my monkey mind? Is it mine? Is it someone else's? We are so hypersensitive when we're pregnant. We are
mhm.
so much more um, easily influenced. And it's important to have that time to check in and go like, okay, that's not mine. Let it go. And what is truly truth for me, especially because of all of the opinions there. It's crazy and it's getting, I think, worse with this information age, just getting more and more intense with information. You can find anything and everything out there. Oof,
Absolutely.
screaming at you.
Yeah, absolutely. And everybody's going to have their own experience. So the more you learn what's right for you, and then you just kind of stick to that. You know, there was a period of time where I was just like, well, do I want a free birth? Do I want to just not call my midwife? And it was a valid thing to question and to ask myself, but that's what I needed to do. I needed to ask myself, why am I even exploring this? Am I trying to prove something? Am I trying to avoid something? Just what was it about? And if I really sort of picked it apart, it was like, even though I knew this woman and I loved this woman, I'm like, is this woman going to interfere? That was just what was just coming into my mind. Sat with it. No, because we've spoken about it. She's not going to interfere. She is clearly stated, and I trust her. And so I'm like, okay, well then I'll call her to come and be present with me. So just even that was really interesting to explore. Because when I traced it back, it was a fear,
Yeah.
and a true fear for me. But then in my heart of hearts, in my soul, in the communication with my baby, it wasn't a fear that I needed to act upon, to worry, to initiate anything else. It was just something I needed to clear.
Yes. And I
Yeah.
think that's a really valid fear because even though you're with an independent midwife, all midwives come from different backgrounds, different trainings, different experiences. There's some home birth midwives that come straight from the hospital for years. Their
Mm.
practice is going to be influenced by that. There's midwives who worked for 30 years in the home. You know, they're going to have a very different practice and approach to home birth. So it is important to listen and to also really speak to your midwife about all these things and not just assume. It's so important not to assume
Mm.
just because she is a home birth midwife and independent, because it really depends. And so you'll find that out through conversation and asking questions.
Absolutely. And that's what they're there for, you know. And if you're speaking to them and you're chatting to them and they're not receptive, well, then that's an indication for you as well, you know.
Mm.
So yeah, it's using obviously your inner knowing and then also just being a bit cluey, you know, picking up on the subtle energies. But yeah, I remember with the first sort of meeting, and she just laid it down. I've had 4 babies. This happened this time. I had this experience. I ended up free birthing my last because of X, Y, and Z. And I'm like, oh, you get it. You
Mhm.
get it. Yeah, and actually, I just want to skip this tiny bit. She was so hands off that literally when I was about to birth Lila, she's like, do you want to take your pants off? Because you're going to have this baby, because she didn't want to interfere and to take my pants off. You know, that's that's the level of autonomy she wanted me to have. Yeah.
I
So
love that.
be wise in who you seek counsel from also, but also y- you have choice. You, in whatever system or whatever way you choose, you have choice. You always have choice. It may not be the easiest choice, and it may not even always be your ideal choice, but you always have choice when you have a moment to connect in, reflect, and you've also got time to
Mhm.
choose, because there's this rush energy,
Mhm.
and I'm like, you can have 5 or 10 minutes to check
Mhm.
out what you want as well. Yeah.
Correct. Absolutely. All right. Well, let's dive on into Lila's birth story, shall
Into the
we?
birth.
Yeah.
Yes. I just got shivers. It's so, yeah, it's so special. So I woke up on Thursday, the 22nd, so exactly 39 weeks. And I was just like, oh shit, I'm going to have this baby today. I had in my head that she was going to come a little bit later. I was just like, oh yeah, maybe 40 weeks, 42. I'm cool being pregnant, but she was ready to come. And my husband went into the city for work. So it was just me and my son Max, who was just shy of 3. And I'm like, okay, this is the last time it's just going to be me and him. So I wanted to make it really chill, really special, just nice and connected. Um, my morning shower, I asked for the water to pour on me and just cleanse away any fear, any insecurities, anything that wasn't mine. Call in who I needed to be with me for the energetic support, and to just really sort of ground in that sacredness. And I really feel like that was the beginning of this really beautiful and connected experience. Yeah, and then me and Max just went about our day super chilled, and I knew that when he went to bed that it was gonna it was gonna kick in. And I remember lying next to him, he was asleep, and it was about 9 o'clock. Excuse me. And I was just, like riding the waves of the surges, contractions, whatever you prefer. And I was comfortable. I was listening to, I made some meditations for myself. Like I actually recorded myself doing a meditation and listened back to it. And this one was called The Portal, and it was about opening up the portal, calling in your ancestors, calling in all the mothers, and opening up that space to then meet with your baby and help to bring them earthside. And I was really comfortable writing these contractions. I could have just stayed there, and I'm like, I need to rest. I need to rest. I didn't rest in my last birth, and I need to rest. In the back of my mind, it was like, get up and walk. It's time to get moving. And I'm like, no, I don't want to. And the next contraction shook me. I don't want to call it painful. I don't consider this birth with Lila painful at all. It was intense. And this contraction just took me out of any comfortability. And it was like, get up and walk. And so I got up and I said to my husband, all right, I'm going to start moving around and should probably look at filling up the birth pool. And the room that I was going to birth in had only just been finished. Classic, repainting and all that kind of stuff when you're pregnant. And the renovations, like why the extreme side of nesting, I guess. And so he's fiddling around with the birth pool, and I'm just walking from the kitchen bench, and then I'm leaning over and I'm having the contraction. And then I'd walk back to the lounge room that had the fireplace on. It was very warm, very cozy. And I would have a contraction on the ottoman. And then that was fine. And I went into the birth room, and it was beautifully set up, but it was cold. And the water wasn't in the pool because Ian was having technical difficulties. And it didn't have my energy in that room because it had only just been finished, kind of thing. And this was all kind of just playing out of my mind. And I'm like, okay, the pool's not ready. It's cold. It needs some time to warm up. And then I have another contraction at the ottoman in the lounge room. That's it. I'm not moving. I'm not going anywhere. And I didn't. I didn't. Ian's like, hey, should we call the midwife? Should we call Lisa? And I'm like, oh, I'm okay. And then he comes back, I don't know, I guess like 10 minutes later, he's like, I think you should probably call Lisa. And I'm like, sure, no problem. At this point in time, I'm totally in my zone. I'm totally in the sensations. And again, I can't label them as painful because I had worked so diligently in not labeling the sensations, in feeling it just as intensity. And I began sort of relaxing. It's a bit tricky because I was relaxing into the contraction. I was just letting it hit me. You know what I mean? I was just letting it come. Was it pleasurable? No, I can't label it as pleasurable either. But I can't label it as painful. And I didn't tense and I didn't contract during the contraction, which is what I was doing in my first birth, my first labor. And then it wasn't rolling contractions. It would just I knew that it would soften. I knew the importance of relaxing. I knew the importance of letting the oxytocin rush into you. And I had this information during my first labor as well, but yeah, I just didn't, I was just holding on too tight.
Yeah. And that's the thing though, like
Yeah.
you do the best you can from where you're at, right? So
Mm.
I mean, now you know the absolute difference and you can really speak to that, which is like such amazing wisdom. And you knew that, but sometimes it just doesn't translate into the embodiment. Like it stays in the mind and in the logic. And for some reason, you can't access it. And then
Mm.
some, some can. And I think key there is what you spoke about earlier, right? The preparation that you did for your second that you didn't do for your first, the inner work,
Mhm.
inner connection. I love this story so much. I was like sitting here, like shaking and celebrating because this is key information. Like to be able, like if you can get to that place where you can truly allow the mighty force of life coming through you and not tense against it, that is
Mm.
key, isn't it?
Absolutely. And that's where you meet yourself. Like that is the portal that we talk about. That is meeting your full capacity. That is your mama bear. That's your goddess. Like that's your everything. That is in that moment. And you absolutely can have this for your first birth. I would have had this for my first birth honestly, had I done a bit more inner emotional work, if I'm honest. Yeah, I would have. But everything's a lesson and a blessing. Yeah, so I was just in it, feeling it. Some emotions came up and I just let it roll. And I felt Lisa, my midwife, come up behind me and it was like a kitten. She just softly like she barely touched my third eye. And she's just like, you can soften a bit more. And I did. It, it was beautiful. And then that just, as it intensified, because this isn't a matter of a couple of hours. Like Lila was happening, whereas Max's birth was over 36 hours. Lila's was just shy of 4, which I know that's yeah. And I was like, yeah, that's where I need to rest. But I know I've heard that can be common with your second birth because your baby or your body, excuse me, knows what to do. But I guess it's all different.
I really like
Yeah.
just listening to you. I think it's just a combination of a lot of different things. Your preparation the second time, your readiness to meet it, to do the inner work. Obviously, most, as probably people have heard, second babies are usually half of the time is what we kind of say. Not always. Some second babies are longer, but generally, right? You can expect that because you've opened the channel. Yes, your body's opened
Mm.
once before, so there's less work to be done to open again, right? So that usually they are shorter, but yours is 4 hours is very quick even for a second birth, especially if your first was 35 hours, right? So, but I
Mm.
really want to emphasize that why that would be though is because of your willingness to meet it. It doesn't seem to me when I listen to you that there was any resistance. You were actually doing the absolute opposite. And so the least resistance, both physical, tension, holding back, fear, well, that's more mental, I guess. So, like physically, your body was already once opened, and you seem to really find a way to relax into and open to that force. But also, your mind was there. Your mind was with it. Your mind was surrendering and opening and reframing and allowing. And so, yes, I believe that all of those factors definitely influenced why you had this really quick birth then.
Yeah, absolutely. And no complaints. No, no complaints. Yeah, it was just so perfect. Yeah. Um, yeah, so that just kept meeting the sensations and sort of I was not aware of what was happening. That sometimes Ian was in front of me and I was holding on to him. Sometimes, honestly, I felt like I was just by myself the whole time, but there was, sort of movement. I will say this surprised me. The noises. Women and even my midwife, she's like, "Oh, it's just your beautiful birth song." And I'm like, oh, it surprised me. but one, I couldn't control it. Two, I didn't care. But also this little part in the back of me, and even on reflection, I was like, whoa. So that was fun, but also very good for my cervix. And so things were progressing very quickly. The birth pool just wasn't going to happen. Even if the water was in there, who was going to move me? And, Ian's just like, I had one job. And I'm like, your one job was to support me, and you did that beautifully. So Lila was never going to be a water baby. She was going to be born on land, and she had decided that without us being aware of. So it was fine. Yes, so the second midwife arrived just 15 minutes before Lila was born. I had no idea. And yeah, it just came time, and Lisa was like, let's take your pants off. And I'm like, oh, okay, whatever, just can you do it for me? And I was holding on to Em, and I just hear, touch your baby, because she was crowning. And I didn't know. I didn't realize. And Lisa's just like, touch your baby, you can feel your baby's head. And I was so up in the etheric realm. And then my humanness was like, how? How can I take my arms off Anne? And also, if I touch this baby, it means that I'm having a baby. And I'm not, no, I don't know if I'm ready for that. And so Lisa's very diplomatically and very beautifully going, touch your baby's head. But, time to reach down, because she knew that she needed to bring me back into earth because I was way up there. And so I touched my baby's head, and I was just like, oh, I can't describe the feeling. I just can't describe it. So my energy just went straight down, and I was connected to Mother Earth. I was connected to this baby. And she came out. Well, actually, her head was born at 11:59 on the 22nd of June. And then I experienced, I guess you would call it the fetal, I didn't push. So I don't know if you would label that as the fetal rejection. Ejection. She wasn't rejected. She was ejected.
That is so funny. Well, actually, it's called the Ferguson reflex. I mean, all these names, who cares? Like, actually, the fetal ejection is confused by most that it is this, but it's actually when a woman feels a huge amount of fear and the baby just shoots out because of that. And
Oh,
this, when
right.
it's like just normal part of labor, it's actually Ferguson reflex.
Yeah.
But who cares
Ferguson
what
will
it's called,
reflex. Yeah.
right? It's probably from a man, right? Ferguson. So who cares about
Yeah.
that? Like,
Yeah.
she
All I know
shut
is I
up.
didn't
Yeah,
push,
yeah,
and
yeah.
she came out. So in my blissful state, and I am going to share this. I decided that I wanted to share this. In my blissful state, she birthed at 12:01 on the 23rd of June, 2023 into my arms, and I put her onto my chest, and my husband was there. Yes, that did happen, but she hit the floor first. And my midwife told me the next day, and I'm like, oh, yeah, so I caught her, and she goes, quickly. Quickly. And I'm like, what do you mean? And I can feel my self shattering. She goes, your bum was really close to the floor, but technically she she birthed onto the ground, and then you picked her up really, really quickly, and she was on your chest. And I looked back at the video. Yes, that did happen, but technically she needed to touch earth before me. So yeah, that was an interesting information to hear. Yeah, but it
You
was all
know,
fine.
that is something that a lot of indigenous peoples do though. No one touches the baby. The
Really?
baby lands on the earth to belong because it belongs to
Oh
the
my
earth,
goodness.
not that family, not
Yeah,
that mother, not that father. It's like belongs to the earth. The earth touches the baby first.
that's so beautiful. Oh my goodness. Oh yeah, she's she's a connected one, little Lila Bloom. Um, yeah, and it was just, yeah, so she touched the earth. I put her to my chest and it was perfect. Like, yeah, like any baby on her mama's chest, it was just perfect. And yeah, we just were in that blissful moment. And my cat Neo came in, and you can see in the film he comes in and he sneaks in and he checks Lila out and then just goes about his business. And yeah, it was just beautiful. We hopped on the couch, we all snuggled up. I had something to eat, something to drink. Yeah, I can't. It was just amazing. And so that was, yeah, so that was midnight. And like I said, the contraction started at 9, but it didn't really rev up until the intensity wasn't until 10:30. So all very fast. Mm, But I was so in my bubble, I didn't feel rushed or anything. It was just what happened.
Well, time doesn't
Yeah.
really exist in labor and birth. It is
No.
timeless. Yeah. And the more you kind of, I guess, disappear into that altered state of consciousness, even more so, like 1 minute, 1 hour, I don't know, you know? Um,
Mm.
so I'm curious, as you birthed your baby though, and she came out in that moment, did you really come back to your body and was like here and now? Were you still in that altered state? How was it postpartum,
Oh, I was
that first?
so, yeah, so in my body. So,
Mm,
like, so nothing existed other than her coming out of my body.
mm,
Yeah, it was so visceral, it was so conscious, it was so connected, and I felt every bit of it because I had an epidural with my first, so I didn't have those sensations. And yeah, I felt every stretch, her movement, the flop, the rest of her body. It was, yeah, it was so it's just amazing. It's just amazing.
yeah.
What I found quite interesting was that so we're sitting on the couch, and you're in that blissful state, and the midwives were just opposite us, just sort of giving us space, and I was just like, I did it without drugs.
Mm,
I did it without drugs, and these words were just coming out of my mouth, and I didn't. And me and Ian reflected on it later, and I'm like, I didn't realize that I was hung up. I didn't realize that I needed. There was a healing cycle that was completed in that I didn't even know. I chose to have interventions. I came to peace with it. I did some work around it, but I still didn't know what it was like to give birth, naturally. I didn't know what it feel like. And then I did it, and yeah, these words were just coming out of my mouth, and I was surprised and relieved and grateful and all those sorts of things. But yeah, it was just an interesting little experience that I didn't expect.
yeah.
Yeah.
And how did you go on birthing your placenta?
So that's the story in a
Mm,
half. It was very important for me to value the placenta and for me to birth it and to not have any intervention, not have the injection, not have it pushed out of me, which is the consequence of having an epidural. Um, Again, I knew about it, but this is very important to me, and for it to not be rushed. So it'd been half an hour, and Lisa said that the placenta was just sitting there. It was just sitting there, just kind of waiting. And I'm like, oh, okay. Well, some women cough it out if it's just sitting there. No, not for me. When you cough up. And I was kind of just sort of so Lila, I was holding Lila. So she obviously is still attached to the placenta. The placenta's just sitting, and I'm sort of squatting, and Ian's supporting me, and Ian's thanking the placenta. We're thanking the placenta. We're thinking that it's some sort of the placenta's holding on in a way, and it wasn't. It was me holding on. And Lisa's mentioned, she's just like, it's just a little push. That's all you need to do. And this is when my mentality, I just couldn't quite grasp pushing or birthing the placenta. And and I felt myself getting a bit frustrated and a bit resentful with myself. And then, your mind goes in of like, oh, everybody's waiting for me to do this. And, it's 45 minutes now and etc. And then I just kind of stopped, zoned back in. I'm like, I wanted to birth this placenta. I didn't birth my first one. I wanted to birth this placenta. Lila wants me to birth this placenta. So birth the placenta. And I pushed and it came out. Like, but again, just the power of the mind.
Exactly.
Yeah, just the power of the mind. And then obviously there was that release and the relief. And you've got this beautiful little baby and then this perfect placenta. And then you've birthed. Yeah.
And the mind, right? I love how this is the theme throughout your story. And it's so not special to you in the sense of this is it, right? Like the mind. Like but it's so clear in your story, which I absolutely love because it's so clear for everyone listening. It's so clear the power of our mind. We put so much emphasis on
Absolutely.
our bodies to be ready or do the work, or we put emphasis on like the midwife or the doula or our partner or the surroundings being influencing us. But actually, what I truly have seen throughout all my years as a midwife and now as a sacred birth worker is the power of the mind and how it either helps or interferes, either labor, birth, or the birth of the placenta.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we forget, and I want all of us to remember that we have control over our mind. It's our mind, it's our energy, it's our body, it's our experience, it's our life, it's our baby. It's in our power. Um, yeah. Yeah, so it is. It's important to take the time. It's important to go inwards and yeah, we have a lot more say, a lot more say. I don't want to say control because that's quite a heavy energy. But we have a lot more choice and a lot more say, and we forget how like far out we can birth, we can create and grow and birth babies. Like we can we can work our mind out. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? We just need to remember how powerful we are.
Yeah. And that if you ever find yourself, in labor or at the moment of birth or, birthing the placenta, that it's not moving forward, you're stuck, whatever. Like it's never too late. Like you just did with your
Mm.
placenta, like you recognize, okay, it's me. I'm for some reason
Mm.
resisting this. And you went in and you solved it through looking inward. And I think that is the key so many times is actually like it's not the external, it is the internal, like turn within and you'll find the answers. What needs to happen? It might be a big cry, it might be you have to speak something like you said, like I didn't do this with, I did this without drugs or whatever. Like intuitively, like as we follow, like we're healing things, we're processing things, we're finding the answers within as we are so present with what is.
Absolutely. And it's there for us.
Mm.
It's there for us. It wants to be released. It wants to be healed. It wants to have that completion. Yeah, we just need to take that moment. It doesn't have to be that lengthy. It's just that moment to move in, be clear, and yeah, totally right.
Yeah, it's like it needs a
Yeah.
second maybe, or like, yeah, it's again, time is an illusion.
Yeah. 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 Totally. Totally. So much can happen in a blip. Yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely.
Yeah, amazing.
Mm.
So you got your lotus birth. Did you do a full
Got my
lotus birth?
lotus first. Yes, it was honestly, our experience, it was really easy. Like it was so easy. We just let like we washed the placenta and we made sure we patted it dry as much as possible. And then we sprinkled a little bit of salt, a bit of rosemary and a bit of lavender and just wrapped up in a towel. And so you had little baby and then a cord that turns into wire like in I want to say 24 hours, maybe a little bit longer, but once the blood's all gone to baby and it just starts to dry up and it over the couple of days it's like wire. Like if you choose to cut it without it falling off, you actually need wire cutters. So there's no, yeah, that's just what it is. And it just means that you're a bit more mindful. And like Lila was in bed with me. So I had Lila and the placenta, and you just needed to make sure, okay, this is where the placenta is and this is where the baby is. And then I would put breast milk on her little belly button and it was fine. Like it just required a little bit extra attention and care, and as it should be with a beautiful little newborn. So I wouldn't classify it as an inconvenience or a hassle or anything. It was a non-issue.
How many
Yeah. And
days
then
before yeah, right. You were going to tell us.
yeah, day 4. And so like I wasn't hung up on having a lotus birth. The information came through, and so I wanted to honor it. But when it came off, it was I was it was so unexpected how I felt. It was amazing. It's like my baby girl has landed. She has chosen that this is the moment in time where she is ready to be fully present with us, fully earthside. And I did not expect to feel that way. It was so special. And then I told Ian, and then it was really a beautiful moment that I didn't expect would happen. I didn't think that I would feel that way. So just in that experience alone, the Lotus birth is worth it, because she chose, she was ready then. And then also you get that extra bit of like, oh, here's my baby. And you're not worrying about the cord or the placenta. So you really have her in close. I loved it. I highly recommend it. You keep the belly button clean, you're mindful of where the placenta is, and you keep the placenta as dry as possible. You can air it out, put fresh salts on. But yeah, 4 days, that was it. The little clip on the belly button that Max had, because it was snipped, I think it was like 10 days or 2 weeks. And then the healing after that was even longer. Lila's belly button, perfect. No problem. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting,
Yeah.
isn't it? It usually is quicker with the lotus birth as it falls off, which is very curious. And it kind of, that practice really like forces you to be so present and also rest. Like it's hard to move around and you wouldn't really leave the house. You would really stay like you should in that postpartum bubble. It makes that even more evident that, okay, we just need to be breastfeeding, resting, and just staying
Yeah.
around the bed or in the bed, which you should postpartum.
100%. And it was just so interesting to feel that the placenta was hers. I don't have words to describe it. It's just a feeling like the placenta was hers. And so it was her choice when she was ready to release it. But yeah, it was definitely a beautiful experience. And if we were to ever have more children, I can't go back. I can't go back now. Lotus birth all the way.
Wow, beautiful.
Yeah.
Wow, beautiful. So if you had a first-time mama in front of you right now who's about to have her baby, and she really wants to have a natural and empowering birth experience, what advice and pearls of wisdoms would you give to her?
I would highly suggest that she learns the sensations of her body, whatever it looks like for her to go inwards, and just to learn the subtle cues of like this is how I feel when I open and when I soften. This is how I feel when I tense. This little ache around my hip is actually helping me to release this emotion or this experience. And that practice builds upon itself. And then you can move into the presence and the energy of your baby. Learn this energy and the sensations of the baby, of what the baby is trying to let you know. And just without the attachment, without the judgment, you're just playing, you're just exploring, you're just being curious. And as that strengthens throughout your pregnancy, when it comes down to really use these tools, you got it. Like you have it. And, sort of as we discovered through this conversation, it doesn't matter what stage you are during your labor, literally having the baby birth or with your placenta, you can go inwards at any time and learn and listen and adjust. But what's most important is that you know that it's coming from your truth, and that's totally in your power. So capable of it. You're designed for it.
I couldn't agree more. I love that so much. Thank you so much for all the birthing wisdom you brought. I loved
Oh, my
hearing your
pleasure.
story.
Thank you for listening. If you love this podcast, then please consider sharing it, leave a review, or make a contribution on our Patreon page. And if you want to connect on social media, then find the podcast on Instagram as The Natural Birth Podcast. Thank you for listening.